So in one of my most recent videos, I covered a game named Tank Squad, an early upcoming game that puts you into the shoes of a tank commander back in the Battle of Kursk during World War II. And as I was describing the game, I used a lot of different tank games and suggestions as a way of building what if you took all of them and put them into one game. However, due to Tank Squad's current status, I figured I would go ahead and cover a couple of other alternatives when it comes to tanking. And today what I'm going to be featuring is a game called Sprocket. Sprocket is a tank game that focuses on designing tanks rather than just using them, allowing you to build tanks from World War I, the early World War II, to middle and late World War II, as well as just modern tanks. The thing I like about this game is it allows you to play through combat scenarios or through a sandbox designing whatever you want. And the limit to what you can build isn't there, so that means if you wanted to, you could build the German P1000 Ratte. Having come out recently in August of 2021, the game's already made a decent amount of progress, and there's a lot more planned for it. Most recently, the game's geometric internals. This will make it so you have to reposition your crew, as well as your transmission and which way the gun can rotate. However, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Okay, so this is Sprocket, a tank building game where you can customize and test out your own vehicles and play out certain scenarios as well as custom battles. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the sandbox, preferably the flat one, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the options that you can do. I'm going to try to build a Panzer 38T. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go completely off of memory in what I think it looks like. I'm not going to be looking up any actual specifications to it. So, you know, it's going to be completely random and a little fun. To start off, you have your generated freeform, generated turrets and all that. I'm going to be using a bit of a boxy hole here, and I'm going to try to figure out what kind of shape I need. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the tracks first, because that'll help me get a nice visualization of what we need. So, to start off, I'm going to go ahead and change the actual track segments itself to a bit more of a German look right here, because this is what they would use on Tigers and Panzers and all that. As you can see, the original track that we had is actually more of like a T-34. You also have something that aligns with the Sherman type tracks and your British tracks, but we're going to be, like I said, using the German style. And so what I'm going to try to do is, I'd imagine the length is a little bit shorter than this, so I'm going to put it down at about here, I want to say. It's a pretty small tank. I'm going to set the era, I forgot to do that, it's going to be early war, so we'll have a lot less weight that we can carry, the engine's going to be a bit shittier. And next we're just going to realign this with how I think it looked. I don't really remember much about the 38T. There we go, that looks pretty decent, and I want to say for the Sprocket itself, it was a bit more like this. We'll have it mounted with the Churchill kind of mount, because I think it looks better in my personal opinion. And fuck it, this is a tank building game where you can customize and design your own machines, so... Suspension, you have two different suspensions. You have HVSS, which was used on late Sherman models, so like the EZ8s and whatnot. And then you have your standard torsion bar suspension, which was what I'm going to use for the 38T. The turn rollers, I don't really give a shit. I usually just keep those the same way. And that's everything that we need for the tracks. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is start getting the actual dimensions of the tracks. Want them to be a bit closer, because like I said, this is a little bastard. And the thickness, I think they were about that big. Really, really small tank. I have to do the same with everything else, so you have your idlers and your road wheels and everything that you have to set in as well, so it actually fits the track segment. And that's looking pretty good from what I remember. I can't actually say how accurate that is, but we'll say it's close enough. Not really sure what I think about the fenders, because they look like they align more with the Sherman and the Churchill, and this one's nice for a Tiger or a Panther, but not really what I'm going for. So I'll use this one. This one looks pretty decent. Once again, you just have to shorten the length, or the width, I mean. You can change the section length so it's shorter or longer, fits with the tank a little bit better. So that's nice. There we are. I think that looks pretty decent for fitting the track. It's almost perfect, just needs a little bit more on the height. There we go. And then next what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and insert the engine, or at least get the basics of it down. It's going to be a light vehicle. Speed limit, I want to say it would probably be about 50 kilometers. That might be inaccurate. It could be faster, it could be slower, I don't know. But what I will do is I'll put it at 2700 RPMs, and I say it had 6 cylinders. That could be completely wrong, it probably is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the downshift and the upshift. That way it actually has a nice little speed limit. It's not just going 70 kilometers an hour. Transmission, you can also set your gears. We'll give it 5 gears forward and 1 gear backward. We will sync all of that up. Just lower that slightly. There we go. You also have your powertrain, so you can turn it from clutch to twin transmission. I don't know what this would use. I'd imagine it would be clutch because it has, well, it's an early model 38C, and already the thing's small. You don't really have much to use internally, so I'm gonna use this to reduce what we're using inside. Now, with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and start actually shortening the length of the hull. Then let me see. So what I can do is drag it out a little bit. There we go. That looks a little bit better. It's not the greatest, but it does start to look a little bit more like a tank, which I enjoy. There we go. I like the way that looks. And there we go. That we have for 38C. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get the turret situated, or actually, before I do that, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to shorten the front a little bit because it's completely flat right now and it doesn't look right. I'm going to move the offset of the rear back just a little bit. There we go, that way it matches the tank still. I kind of like that. Anywhere like I remember it, but fuck it, we'll keep it there. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually put the turret onto the tank, and that way we can get started with the main parts. This will do a lot better. It looks more of a British kind of turret, but it'll smooth out as I start to mess with the edges of it. And I'm going to move the hull forward a little bit because I don't like the way it looks at the front right now. It's just a little bit flat. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place the crew hatches down as well as the commander cupolas. That way I can start looking at the actual design of the tank. It's easier for me to do it that way. And so now that we have these placed down, I'm going to insert the commander cupola. And this is the 38C. There we go. I think we'll have it just situated like that. That looks about right. And as you can see, while it's still only a basic tank, it's actually starting to take on its shape, which I like, because it's somewhat recognizable. Give it a couple of lights on the back, that way you can see when it's moving, as well as a front spotlight right here. So then we'll see about getting it a stowage area, which I can't remember if the 38C actually had one, but I'm going to give it one anyways. I always liked the way it looked. A tank without it, or a German tank without it, just doesn't look right in my opinion. I think what I'll do is just this nice little simple toolbox. Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna give it its back antenna. And just for the hell of it, I'll throw in a ring around the turret, that way we have a nice little extra decal. Next what I'm gonna do is give it its viewport, which would be right about here. Now, I can't remember for sure if it had a actual hull gun, but I'm gonna put one there anyways. I think what the 38C had was it had a coaxial, but not an actual hull machine gun. Because it was a very, very tiny compartment. Next what I'm gonna do is I'm going to bring that back just slightly. There we go. And I'm gonna cut off that edge a little bit. There, that's a little bit better than what we had it at. So next what I'm going to do is let me make sure I have everything here the way I like it. I'll give it a couple of tools and whatnot as decals, that way it doesn't look as barren and empty. It's got a little bit of actual depth and cosmetics to it, which makes it look more real. I'll give it a couple like sleeping bags and whatnot, so it looks like it's prepared for an actual battle. There we go. And next what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the gun. So you want to go down here to the gun mount, and I think this is what I'm wanting. Yeah, Panzer 38C. And we'll just add that on there. And then real quick, before I forget, I'm going to add in the machine gun right beside it. Perfect. I like the way that looks. Now back up to the gun. I believe what it fired was a 37mm. So it wasn't the most effective tank, but it was pretty good for a start. I think there were about 1,300 38Cs that were produced by World War II. Then they moved on to the early Panzer IIIs, the Panzer IVs, all of that. These were decent little support tanks, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually kind of enjoyed them. I'm not gonna fuck too much. I was trying to think of like if I want to add anything, but I don't know much about the turret itself. All I know is it was relatively small, pretty short. I will increase its thickness a little bit, so I'll give it a 38. There we go. So that would give it a penetration of about 23 meters, which is pretty decent. And if you want, you can give it nice little muzzle brakes and whatnot. I'm not going to do anything about that. Next, you want to go ahead and add in your ammunition. And I believe the loader would sit on the right side. I could be wrong. I know they started to in later German tanks. But for now, I'm going to leave the ammunition right here. And I will give it 2 things of armor piercing and then 1 of APHE once I get that selected. There we go. Had a bit of a bug with the controls for a second, but it's fine. And so now that we have our ammunition loaded, I'm going to go ahead and test it out, make sure that it actually fires. Wait just 1 second. I forgot, in order to fire it, you do need to have the gunner sight put down, so I put it right here. There we go. And it fires as normal. Has a relatively quick reload because it's a small gun, small little tank. Quick little bastard, too. So I'm going to go back to editing it. I'm going to try to... I don't know if I want to mess with the turret. I kind of like the way it is. Let me take another look at its mobility. Now I can add in the engine and the vents and all of that. From what I remember, it had just a singular vent on the back. Just gonna move the tools aside as well. And we will give it its exhaust. I want to say it had a side kind of exhaust, a little bit like the Sherman. Yeah, I think it peeked out from behind. Yeah, that looks very familiar from what I remember. And so we have most of our tank. The turret, as you can see, is extremely cramped. The hull is perfectly fine, but I'll see if I can reduce the amount of crew. I want to say these things only held 4 people, so I really don't think that that machine gun was there. I'm going to keep it there, though. I'm just going to reduce the amount of people we have. Next what I'm going to do is I am going to slow down how fast the turret itself can actually turn. Since it's a early war tank, you know, it's not going to have the best speed. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out, see how fast it turns. I like that. There is one last thing I want to try to do. I want to try to turn it to a manual turn. Here it is, hand cranked. There we go. Yeah, I feel like that. I feel like it's good speed. A little fast, but not too fast. I'd say it's pretty good for an early war tank. And personally, I think this is almost ready. I'm going to add a couple things like viewports and whatnot, but for the most part, this is pretty ready. There is one last thing I'm going to do, and this is going to take a decent minute, but I'm going to go ahead and add in all of the rivets, since it was a very, very riveted tank. And I'm just going to cut the video to the finished product, because this is going to take probably 10 minutes. Okay, and there we go. So we have our rivets placed. It looks a lot better in my opinion. It actually looks like a Panzer, or a 38C. I don't know if I'm really missing anything. If I wanted, I could give it this, help it cross trenches. Which I will, because that actually looks vaguely familiar. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like I remember something similar to that on 38C. And I'm not gonna lie, I just like how it feels in the back there. That way it doesn't look so empty, because if without it, it's just... there's a giant gaping hole right there. I don't like that. And let's see if there is something I can use to fill in this area right here at the front. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add in another stowage up here, and little backpack should do. Right about there. There we go. So that's done. I like the accessories. It doesn't look completely blank. It's got a nice bit of everything surrounding it. It's got the cannon. The only thing that's left really is to give it its actual armor thickness. That way it doesn't just get shot once and it's dead. So what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna make this ungodly powerful. I want to say the thickness would probably be, I'll make it 50. No higher, because it's really not that heavy of a tank. And then for the side armor, I will give it 20. And for the back, I'm actually just going to leave it where it is, because I feel like it's, you know, nice. 10 millimeters, it doesn't need any more than that. But with that being said, that looks pretty good in my opinion. It's not completely accurate. It might actually be a little bit wider, but it looks pretty good in my opinion. Especially for going completely off of memory and not being a mechanic in any sense of the word. All I have to do, I'll go ahead and name it. Okay, there we go. So we have a Panzer 38C. Now I'm going to test it out. The other day I made a Panzer 4, so we're going to see how this fares against one of those. You can press Z and it'll pull up a spawn menu. And it went about as expected, the basket's getting almost immediately killed. And now, if I really want, I can do one last thing. I should actually do this, now that I think about it. I'm going to give it a nice little German cross. And with all the cosmetics being done, I'd like to say that the 38C is complete. All that's left is to do a little battle demo, and that should be it. There they are, see him, just barely. This is probably the only type of tank that I can fight, because the other ones, they're just too strong. So I'm really left down to early World War I and whatnot. As long as I keep to their flanks, then I'm fine, but aside from that, I can't penetrate them. Not really from the front. Right there I got a decent shot. I think I killed his driver, so you can see it turn blue. What you have is you have white, which means you ricocheted, you have blue, which means you penetrated, but didn't do anything completely killing, and you have green, which means you did destroy it. And with that little demo, that's essentially everything, the short run of it. Like I said, there is a lot more that you can do with this. There's a lot more wider scale of things that you can build and wider battles that you can have. But I decided I was going to just build a simple 38C and showcase it so it doesn't take too long. I know what I'm doing. I do absolutely enjoy this game though, both as just a little building simulator, but also what it gives you. Because currently, as you could see from the brief battle I had, if you kill certain crew members like the commander, the radio operator, the driver, then the tank won't be able to move or it won't be able to see as well. And furthermore, if you take out the engine or the tracks, then the vehicle won't be able to move. So for what it is, I really enjoy Sprocket because while it's still pretty early access and it has a lot to do, what it's already implemented into it has given me several hours of fun. If you've been looking for a game that allows you to be a bit more creative with what you're using, then this is definitely one of the best, if not the best out there, since there really aren't any that allow you to create your own machines. With that being said though, if you liked this video, then please leave a like and a comment, whatever you want to do. For my next video, I'm going to be showing Call to Arms Gates of Hell Ostfront, which is my absolute favorite World War II game. However, until then, I will catch you next time. See ya.